Joining us now, Denver Riggleman, Denver candidate for Congress for the 5th District of Virginia. That'll be for the seat of the retiring Tom Garrett. He is opposed there by Democrat Leslie Colburn. We have this district likely Republican. And Denver with us now. Great to have you, Denver.
Good morning. It's raining here. I don't know if you knew that or not, where I'm at.
Good morning, Denver.
It's rain everywhere.
It's raining. Yeah, it's raining. I'm in Waynesboro right now. But yeah, it is.
I mean, basically, I have to give the weather 3 times a day. The easiest thing for me to do is just say, hi, it's John, rain, and then move on, and I pretty much have it nailed.
That's right.
We're going to be talking about the Kavanaugh situation. Obviously, that's on everybody's mind, but Denver, I want to switch. By the way, I saw your ad yesterday in Roanoke during the Redskins game. Great ad, I thought.
Thank you.
Just FYI. I thought that was an excellent ad. Let's get to the president's speech at the UN today, expecting to address trade, North Korea, the China situation, perhaps Syria and Yemen. What do you expect in today's UN speech, Denver?
I think he's going to. I think if I don't know, what a speechwriter would do, but I think the first thing he's going to mention is Korea. There's a bipartisan commission there now in Korea, and I think Tom is one of the people over there in Korea right now, or he's on his way back if he can get through TSA. But on his way back. But I think the first thing is going to be the North and South Korea talks. I think the next thing he's probably going to hit on is trade. I think he's going to hit on China. I don't know if he's going to hit on some of the bigger issues with China beyond trade, which are the Spratlys and the Paracels, the South China Sea, right? What's going on in that triangle, between Malaysia, Vietnam, and China, south of Hainan Island there.
Right.
I think, yeah. And so that's what I do still for a living at the Pentagon. So I might have some insight on the operation portion of the policy issues that we have. But I think he's probably going to touch on Libya. There's a resurgence there of ISIS on the nationalized pipeline issues that are going there, which we're looking at also. I'm sure he's going to touch on Syria. We see a resurgence of the Iranian-backed, sort of enclaves there. So I think all these things that we're seeing, geopolitically, but also, with the hegemonic powers and the things that are going on, I think he's going to have to touch on all of those, during the speech. It's a lot, right? And you're not just, if you're talking Syria, you're talking Libya, you're talking Korea, you're talking China, you're talking trade. Not only talking trade, you're talking about the military issues that are in the South China Sea. You're talking about the explosion of the defensive missile batteries in the South China Sea, the fact that they're building up faster and faster. And we're looking at that also. And I would love to tell you, that I know exactly. I can't do that yet, but at some point I might be able to. But I have a pretty good idea of what's going on, especially in Asia. So I think he has a lot to cover in that UN speech.
Congressman Mike Pompeo yesterday claiming a lot of success being made since we joined the North Korean talks, talking about the remains of our fallen and Korean war coming home. They haven't done any nuclear testing, re-engaging with the South Koreans. So Secretary of State Pompeo outlining a litany of accomplishments that the Trump administration has made, but a lot of the Democrats basically saying it's all smoke and mirrors, that they haven't really accomplished anything substantial other than our remains coming home, which is, documented. Obviously, they're home. Just kind of summarize that for us. Is Pompeo right, or are the critics right?
Well, I mean, number one, remains coming home of our soldiers is pretty huge. And me as a veteran, that's pretty big. So let's say that's fantastic right now. As far as what's going on, even if you're looking on from the intelligence side, we think it's fantastic that, we're engaging in talks. I mean, that really hasn't happened if you're talking about constructively for a long time. So for us, fantastic. But listen, with North Korea, South Korea, I think anybody is probably being a little bit intellectually dishonest if we say that, we crow about victory before we get something substantial from the Kim Jong-un, regime, and to see what North Korea and South Korea are actually agreeing to also, because we have to be very careful about what we agree to based on the fact that we have 30,000 troops, give or take, on the DMZ. So for me, what else has happened in the past 40, 50 years? Nothing. So the fact that we're here is huge. I just think we have to be, very wary of what North Korea might do. We have to be very wary of what we agree to. So I think maybe, hey, it's a great start. the remains of our soldiers is absolutely spectacular. I mean, for me, that's an emotional moment. But I think we have to be very, very wary of Kim Jong-un, and we have to be very wary about what we agree to. And I think the talks might be going well, but let's see what happens over the next few weeks and not have a lot of, hyperbole one way or the other.
Denver, if Kim Jong-un agrees or asks for another meeting, are you in favor of the president having a meeting, or do you take the position that until there's some substantial progress, you don't want to meet with him anymore?
Well, there's a fantastic old Spec Ops colonel of mine who always said, there's two things, right? Number one, don't let the piss ants call up your combat boots. But I think the second thing, which means you ignore the critics of having to do something that is absolutely a positive step towards security, not only for our troops on the border, but for the United States. And I think he has to meet with them. I think that's your responsibility of the commander-in-chief, also the responsibility of the National Command Authority, to ensure that you visit every single avenue that you can and you look these individuals in the eye. Reagan did it, and let's just not say some Republicans did it. Carter did it back, with Egypt. There's all kinds of ways that the National Command Authority has to engage at the highest level of the other governments in order to make sure that we look them in the eye and we get the agreements that we need in place for our security.
At our roundtable, Dr. Nancy Dye. We're live in Roanoke today. We're at her home. Thank you, Nancy, for having us. Jennifer Brown is with us. She's the chairwoman of the 6th District of the Republican Party of Virginia. And Susan Platt, she was former chief of staff for Senator Joe Biden, also ran for lieutenant governor in Virginia in 2017, coming in second to Justin Fairfax, who eventually won that race. Denver, I'm going to get everybody involved, but I've got to go to the Kavanaugh situation. Although you're running for the House, not for the Senate, so technically you're not involved. But with these new allegations that have come out and Thursday's scheduled to be the hearing, do you think that should be put off for more investigation? Or do you think we ought to just move forward and let everybody say what they say and let the chips fall where they may?
I don't think I think it's going to come out of the hands of the Senate here soon. I think if there's a third allegation, you got the glorified ambulance chaser Avenatti out there, right? And I think if there's a third allegation, I got a feeling, I think Judge Kavanaugh might withdraw himself at this point with his family and what he's going through. And also on Thursday, based on Senate rules, I think they got to wait after he actually testifies and Dr. Blasey Ford testifies. And if they don't get satisfaction there, my guess is this will be pushed off until after the midterms. I don't think there's going to be a vote. And if people keep coming forward, regardless of whether it's true or false, at this point, I just don't see where he can get through if allegations continue every week and they call for investigations every week. And I also think, everybody talks about FBI investigations. Those are not criminal investigations. That's a background investigation. I have to go through one, every 5 years with DSS, Defense Security Service. So, looking at background investigations and look what they're going to have to do at some point, I think the FBI will get involved. And if that slow roll happens, I don't ever think you're going to get to a confirmation vote, John.
Well, and the judicial rules are 72 hours after the hearing on Thursday. So 72 hours would, I guess, be Tuesday or Monday. I don't know
what I'm saying. Yeah, the following week, if you look at business days. And I think at that point, if somebody else were to come forward and ask for a hearing, my guess is that my guess is they're going to grant those hearings. I don't see that there's any way out of that. I think they're going to do it.
Let me get Susan involved. I know she's chomping at the bit here to weigh in on this Kavanaugh situation. Susan, with Denver, Riggleman running for Congress. Denver just said, look, if these allegations continue to come out, it's just time to bail. What say you?
Thank you, John. Well, first, let me just say to Denver, I'm in Nancy's home. It's just fabulous at the top of Roanoke. And I really thought I caught a glimpse of Bigfoot driving up the mountain. So you might send some folks out here to take a look.
Bigfoot all over the place.
in the fog.
In the fog. Hey, it's never all right to sexually assault anybody, ever. And I think what Denver says is true. I mean, the first one, and I'm kind of surprised that Mitch McConnell has not said, let's investigate it and let's move on. Instead, what he's done is said, look, we're going to plow through this. This is a hiccup. Well, clearly it's not a hiccup. And for those people who don't want to believe Dr. Ford, why did we believe all these young boys 30 years later who accused priests of molesting them? So it's never okay, and I really can't understand why we haven't had, regardless of who started what, how it all got started. We are where we are now. We need a politically neutral process if they're going to do anything forward in terms of either voting for him or him withdrawing. We need to investigate it fully, because this could be criminal still in the state of Maryland.
So what Denver's saying, though, is the FBI is not going to do a criminal investigation. He says they're going to do a background check just like they do on him, which could take about a week. So I guess that becomes a question. If that would clear it up, why not do that, Nancy? Just have a background check.
Yeah, I think, if you look at it, and I try to look at it, from rule of law, but also from analysis. And even when you're looking at counterintelligence or counterterrorism, you just go right down to the facts. And I think there's some appalling things, that you look at. Number one, the midterms aren't until November 6th. So if I was there, I would have said, hey, let's investigate. We have, listen, I have 3 daughters and a wife. So most people are going to be automatically like, we cannot minimize any type of sexual harassment claim, right? I mean, that's just ridiculous. However, what gets me is that there's not this equal and angry sort of thing at Feinstein, Diane saying, oh, I'm going to wait 3 months. I'm going to weaponize this. She wanted it anonymous, but she sent me the letter. Oh, and somehow it got leaked. So you have somebody who waited to the last second. So if there was really that much love and compassion on the Democratic side for an accuser, this would have come out far before this nomination process. So you have somebody weaponizing a woman's pain on one side, right? You have hyperbole that's just going crazy on both sides. You have lawyers jumping in that seem to find these glorified ambulance chasers like Avenatti, and now we have this hyperbolic battle between Democrats and Republicans, and we have a man in the middle of it, who nothing like this has ever come up before, with a wife and 2 daughters, that's being actually crushed. And on the other side, you have somebody, who's claiming assault being crushed at the same time, right, in the press. This could have gone away if people just do the right thing, which means if Diane would just done the right thing instead of politicizing this to save her own bacon, we wouldn't be in this position right now. If, right, and this is the scary part, as a Republican, if, Judge Kavanaugh, right, has done this. However, this has to be investigated. So it puts you in an impossible situation where you have political parties weaponizing people's pain for gain. And I think that's why people like me are running, because we're sick of it. And, why don't you just have some integrity on both sides of the process? And if both sides have integrity in the process, we wouldn't be in this ridiculous position that we're in today.
So, Susan Plutt, let me ask you this. So Dianne Feinstein had this letter, and she spent 2 hours and 20 minutes privately with Judge Kavanaugh in her office. And she also is the ranking member of Judiciary Committee, so she had ample time to ask him about this during the public hearing. But at the least, wouldn't you have expected in her office in private, she would have taken the letter out and said, Judge, I got this from a congresswoman in my district. Can you look at this and respond to me, because it's weighing on me heavily? Why wouldn't Feinstein have done that, Susan?
I don't know, John. I don't know all the details. I don't know if I'm not going to defend it, but I'm not going to criticize it, because I don't know the details.
Well, the details are what I just said.
No.
She had the letter.
Hold on one second.
And she had a 2-hour interview with him.
Hold on one second.
Those are the details.
No. The details comes back to the woman who claims she was assaulted. If she said, I do not want my name public, she's got to abide by that. Now, I don't know how it got leaked, and I will not defend kind of all the background. We are where we are now, which begs for a politically neutral investigation. Susan, not like Mitch McConnell is saying he's going to plow through this and it's going to happen.
There's not going to be a politically neutral anything, because there's no one who is being intellectually honest here. Dianne Feinstein had this letter. If she had compassion for this woman, she would have addressed it privately. The bad is on her. She's going to go out of her career with a giant dark check against her for her behavior in this.
Well, Nancy, I'm not saying I'm not going to defend Dianne Feinstein. Like I said, I don't know, you don't know, John doesn't know. Dr. Ford may have said, I do not want this leaked. I want an investigation. I do not want my name out there. So We don't know that detail.
Yeah, but she could have said, I have a letter, I can't give you the name, this is it, do you have any comment on it?
Well, you guys would have screamed, that's totally unfair to not know who their accuser is.
Well, I mean, but she could have said it in private. I mean, the fact that it gets set up this way. And then you got the New Yorker story, which now is really collapsing because the New Yorker had, just as a journalist myself, that was an editor of newspapers. I mean, you got 4 witnesses that the lady Debbie Ramirez gave the New Yorker. 3 of them were her friends, said they knew nothing about it. He was not there. They were at no party with either of them. And the other witness says, well, I wasn't there, but I heard about it 3 days later. I mean, is that substantiated? I mean, if you put that in front of even a grand jury who would indict a ham sandwich, they throw it out.
But this is not a criminal investigation. This is for confirming a Supreme Court justice for a lifetime term. This is the Supreme Court is the final arbiter of our laws, of our Constitution. So it needs to be fully investigated. And like I said when I first started, I don't want to go back. You guys want to argue process. I want to argue the facts, which is if there are allegations of sexual assault, they need to be investigated regardless of how we got here. We are where we are.
Okay, let's give Denver Riggleman the final word. Denver, you got a minute. How do you think this whole thing ought to play out?
I think it's going to play out. Number one, and it's not that it's such an emotionally charged issue. Yes, we don't know what happened behind closed doors, but I'll just say this for everybody. If she wanted to remain anonymous, she wouldn't have sent a letter to Dianne Feinstein. That just wouldn't have happened. So that to me right now, again, if you're looking at analysis, however, we don't know. And we also don't know if Judge Kavanaugh is guilty, and there's a presumption of innocence before guilt. How do I think it's going to play out? If a third accuser comes out, which will be timed at the worst possible time and the best possible time based on what side of the aisle that you're on, I think that Judge Kavanaugh doesn't allow this to go to his vote based on his family. I have a family. If I am falsely accused of something like this and my family is being dragged through the mud and, there's going to come a point where his family comes first, regardless of the accusations. And I think on the other side, I don't think you're going to see an end to the investigation for some time, and I think eventually, Judge Kavanaugh will remove himself from the process. I think
that's going to be
it's a dangerous precedent there.
Myself and things of that. I think he's going to remove himself.
Yeah, dangerous precedent there.
30 seconds, Nancy. Go ahead. We got to get
frightening.
Out.
No, it's absolutely frightening.
It's very
but
frightening.
I'm just trying to look at it from both perspectives, and I think with the judge, I just don't see I hope he stays in and he fights for his innocence if he is innocent. I hope he fights but I also know that being a family man, it might come to a point where he removes himself. And that's
right.
Dr. Ford has
I think
children
with
too.
the third charge, this has gotten to be ridiculous. So if you were tending to believe the first accuser, okay. Second one, this is getting a little crazy. Third one, this is definitely crazy with an agenda. And I think that it should actually tip people the other way if they're going to be intellectually honest about it.
Or it could be a pattern.
You're saying that it could backfire if it
absolutely
isn't a pattern.
And if
backfire big time. And I think you're going to see Thursday. I think you're going to see Thursday a very angry judge, and I think you're going to see a very angry accuser. And it's going to be interesting how the Judiciary Committee reacts to it and what the FBI does. And I think that day we will know, Republican or Democrat, what happens to Judge Kavanaugh.
That's going to be the final word. I want to thank Denver Riggleman for joining us for this segment. Denver running for Congress in the 5th District of Virginia. He's a Republican candidate to replace the retiring Tom Garrett. His opponent, Democratic nominee Leslie Colburn. That'll be decided November 6th. Denver, what's your website?
It is denverforcongress.com, and my Twitter is Denver, the number 4VA. Again, guys, if you go to Denver for Congress on Twitter, that is a guy dancing in a red, white, and blue thong, and that is not me. So do not go to that one.